Class is in session, hitting the books. College basketball show Friday, February the 14th. It's Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you, ready to break down, as we always do on the Friday edition, Friday and Saturday college basketball. Although we're only going to talk in our game-by-game previews. We're only going to talk one Friday game, UCLA, Indiana, because that's really the only power conference game taking place tonight. It's a lot of MAC, Metro Atlantic, Ivy League, Horizon League stuff going on tonight, but only the one power conference game. We'll talk about that. And, of course, a bunch of the marquee games on Saturday coming up tomorrow. So let's get right into it, and we will begin with tonight's, main event, if you will, UCLA and Indiana. UCLA 1.5-point road favorites here at Assembly Hall, 139.5 the total in this game. Kind of out of nowhere. I didn't expect it, but Indiana beating Michigan State the other night. Credit to them. Pretty solid performance there in a victory for the Hoosiers in that game. Of course, they're in a weird state where they're trying to salvage something out of this season. You have to come out of that game and ask yourself, okay, is this a sign that maybe this team's going to get on a bit of a roll? Because we know this team is supposed to be better than they've played. They're supposed to have more talent on this Indiana team than they've often shown in these disappointing results. But can a win like that against Michigan State kind of get the ball rolling into a strong finish to the season here in February and into March? I'm going to need to see more before I'm a believer. I can tell you that right now, because the last two times we've seen Indiana win, a home win against USC, well, they got blown out at Iowa on the road the very next game. We saw them beat Ohio State on the road outright as a dog. What do they do in their next game? They lose by 9, basically trail most of that game at Northwestern, who aren't that great and have had a lot of injuries. So Indiana has not shown me at any point a track record of a win getting them going, springboarding into better play moving forward. I don't trust them flat out here tonight coming off that big win. And you look at UCLA, they've been playing some excellent basketball really ever since Mick Cronin had his little tirade. They've looked like a different team, and they had a 7-game win streak going. It got snapped the other night when they went to Champaign and they lost to Illinois. I will say this, UCLA had a bad game. They fell behind big. The fact that they came back and made a game of that in the second half, I give them credit. They didn't quit on the game. They battled. They got to within 2 or 3 points in that game with Illinois before falling short. Now it's the second leg of this Midwest trip for UCLA, coming off that tough loss to Illinois where they battled back. I like the Bruins here. They're still, to me, the better defensive team. They only have to win the game to cover the point spread. I trust them more than I trust Indiana here. And I'd certainly like their defense more. So I'm on UCLA here, just taking them on the money line here, -120, -125. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't bet this. I kind of like UCLA too. Like, I think if they bring their best game, that they could go in there and win. Will that happen? I mean, they played a lot better after having some shitty, road games when they've had to make these. And they go on that crazy streak and then lose, like you just talked about 3 days ago. But they're healthy, and I think the key is to get back and play that great defense. They will win. I think they could shut down Indiana. And what do you make from them, Indiana, that win against Michigan State? Of course, Indiana at home is always, spots. It's always they play their best basketball there. But I don't know. Coach lingering there. Yeah, I don't know what to make of that. The situation is just weird. So, I lean UCLA and the under. I just haven't bet this game. I'm just going to stay off in the end, as much as I like the Bruins. This seems kind of a little bit of a coin flip, depending on what we get.
Indiana has played a little bit better defensively. 3 straight unders after that huge run of overs that they had. Defense has played better. They've actually slowed their pace down a little bit. But I look at this here as Indiana. We talk about Assembly Hall as a tough place to play, and I guess overall the home record is still good at 11-3. Well, the last 3 home games are the ones they've lost. They've actually lost 3 in a row here at home at Assembly Hall. They lost to Michigan. They're all tight games. Yep, by 3 to Michigan, by 1 to Maryland, and then by they got blown out. They got blown out. That's the one they got blown out by 25. But it hasn't been one of these. We think of Assembly Hall, man. Good luck trying to win there. Not lately. Teams have been able to go in there and win. and they've lost 3 in a row here on their home court, Indiana. So I think just asking UCLA to win the game, I'm intrigued by that because I think they're just a better team, better coach, better defense. There's a lot that there's a lot of boxes that get checked in UCLA's favor, in my opinion, in this matchup. So I do like UCLA here to get the job done on the road. All right, let's turn our attention to Saturday. And we'll begin with one of the early games, Arkansas, Texas A&M. We've got Texas A&M, 8.5-point home favorites, 139.5 the total in this game. C-Mac, I said it last show. I mean, if we're finally going to buy into Texas A&M, covering a point spread as a bigger home favorite, this is the spot to do it against Georgia. And they did. They finally covered and rewarded their backers laying points, 69-53 over Georgia in that game for A&M, their 4th straight win. That was, Wade Taylor has now gotten several games under his belt now. So his chemistry with his teammates is starting to come back after returning from that injury, and they're starting to heat it up. I'm telling you right now, buy stock in Texas A&M to win the SEC tournament. I'm going to say it right now, flat out. That will be a futures bet in my portfolio in March. Texas A&M to win the SEC tournament. Everyone's going to hype up Auburn. Everyone's going to hype up Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee. Say those are the teams to beat in that conference. And here's A&M. And you know how Buzz Williams has been able to do this in the past. Take his A&M team on a run in the conference tournament. He's like a Dana Altman in that regard. He's a master of it. So A&M futures in the SEC tournament, I'll be interested for sure. They're playing great ball. I don't want to step in front of them. They're playing really well. Arkansas, has played, starting with the return to Rupp for Calipari, starting with that game at Kentucky. They have played better. They've covered 4 straight. They win at Texas. They win by double digits at home against LSU in their last game, and their only loss was a 4-point loss to Alabama. So I get the idea of maybe taking points with Arkansas. They're on a point spread streak, and their only loss in the last 4 games was a 4-point loss to one of the best teams in the conference, Alabama. So maybe this is too many points to lay with A&M, but A&M's just a better team, in my opinion. I trust Buzz more than I trust Calipari. It's a home game for A&M. It's probably a game I'm not betting, but I'm not stepping in front of the Aggies. That's just what I've decided here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I want to look at a little bit more. I mean, I was on that with Georgia. They just smothered that under in that game with A&M. I kind of like it here at this price, especially Arkansas. Can they keep, they've been shooting the ball well during this run. Seems like a tough spot for them. You talk about A&M, if they're going to, make a run, it's because of the defense, I think. Especially if they have Taylor get a little more other guys involved and the offense goes, they definitely can because of that defense, I think. So that will be interesting. That's why I love this team. Tough as nails.
Yep.
Buzz Williams team. So, yeah, I like the under here in this game. I kind of lean A&M to cover the number.
All right, Wisconsin, Purdue. Purdue 5.5-point home favorites, 147.5 being the total in this game when it comes to the Badgers and the Boilermakers in Big Ten action on Saturday afternoon. I think there's a 1 p.m. Eastern game, so you got a little bit more time to get this bet in. But the way I look at this here is, with these two teams, and we've talked about this with Wisconsin, how there's a better offensive team than we've seen in recent years under Greg Gard. Versatility. They've got John Tonji. They've got John Blackwell. They've got Crowell. They've got Klesmit. It's a team that's got inside.
Well, Vanno's internet out. I'll take it over until he gets back. So, yeah, Wisconsin, Purdue here in this game. Total's about 146. You back?
Sorry about that. Yeah.
Hit it.
I closed the wrong window, but we're back. There's a better Wisconsin team. And offensively, here's the thing with Purdue. They're coming off the tough loss against Michigan. So would I really want to go up and fade them here in this spot, bounce back spot off a road loss at Michigan? Probably not. And they're laying a short number. They're only laying 5.5 here. So I'm probably not on the side. But for me, this is, as Connor Mack likes to say when he likes an over. Am I doing it right?
Yeah, I like it.
That's what I like in this game. Purdue's been an over machine. Wisconsin's a better offensive team than they've been in years past. I think Purdue, after the loss, is going to – and this has been the thing, too, with Purdue at home, and especially off a loss. They haven't been scared to run up the points After they lost to Ohio State, they scored 91 against Michigan. And then, of course, they scored 81 against Indiana that went over the total here at Mackey Arena. 90 points in their last home game against USC. That game flew over the total. So they've been an over machine at home. They're off a loss. I don't think they stepped their foot off the accelerator. So I like over in this game more than anything. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, right. When you went out, that's what I was going to hit on. I think at the 147, 148, I still think there's a little value with these two teams to the over, and the offenses have been well. Wisconsin has won their last few. They've gone under. The other team, as they got past 65, I think that'll be the difference here in this game, that they both can get up and down. Yeah, I could see some people think Wisconsin, maybe take the points of them, maybe early. So I don't know. Purdue's been really good at home. They kind of have that one game they lost early on, I think, but they bounced right back and kind of kicked teams' asses. I'm going to look to fade them on the road. At Michigan State's their next game. That seems like a great spot to kind of go against them there.
Yeah, I lean Wisconsin. I honestly do. Even though they're off a loss, Purdue, I lean Wisconsin, because if you look at the series history, Wisconsin's played Purdue close, Purdue tough every single time.
They're always pretty good games, yeah.
They're always pretty good games. So I think people will automatically knee-jerk react to lay the points with Purdue because they lost to Michigan, a few nights ago. I don't know if it's going to be that easy, though. I could see this being a tougher game for Purdue than you would think. I just prefer over, because I think Purdue will score, in bunches at home, which they've done repeatedly. And I think Wisconsin offensively, like I said, you watch Wisconsin, there's no doubt they got more shooting, more offensive capabilities than they've had in years past. And I think they could chip in and do enough and contribute enough for the over here as well. All right, Vanderbilt and Tennessee. We've got Tennessee 13.5-point home favorites, 138.5 the total here in this game. So this is Tennessee off a loss at Kentucky. And this is Tennessee in revenge, because they lost to Vanderbilt in Nashville at Vandy earlier this season. So you got them off a loss. You've got them in revenge. So you put those two things together, and I'm sure there's going to be people interested in laying it here with Tennessee. I can't do it, though. I just think for this team, from a point spread standpoint, we talked about this when conference play started. The SEC is going to be an absolute fucking meat grinder. It's going to be an absolute slog to get through this conference because of how good it is top to bottom and how deep it is. And we said, be careful that Tennessee, because they rolled in the non-conference, be careful that them being overvalued from a point spread standpoint once we get to SEC play. That's exactly what we've seen happen. This team is a batting .500. They're no better than a 5-5 ATS team in their last 10 games. So they have not been the great cash cow and moneymaker for their backers. As double-digit favorites, they've had some tough setbacks. You remember the Kentucky game, they were home favorites. They lost that game outright. They were 9-point home favorites against Missouri in this price range. They only won that game by 4. They're in a price range here where I'm not fully on board with them covering a number like this. And it goes back again to their offense. Like, what happened to it against Kentucky? Kentucky couldn't stop anybody. And here's Tennessee. They couldn't make a shot to save themselves, in that Kentucky game against a weaker defense. And, it's just their pace is slow. Jerry Davis in the chat saying that 100%. You don't always trust them to make their shots. You can't always trust them to shoot 40+% from the field. Not this team. That's not the profile of a team I'm confident in laying 13.5 points. So I'm probably off the game, and I'd probably lean under, if anything, because here we go again. Tennessee slumping. They either slump offensively or they're nails to score against defensively. That's been what we've seen the last 2 games, one or the other. So I would probably lean a little bit to the under here, but I'm probably going to stay off the game. I mean, I would actually take Vanderbilt with the points before I lay this many with Tennessee, but I probably won't do that. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, with them on the road, this seems like the good spot to take Vandy's team total, I think, under, or just the under in this game. This is where I like to take a Tennessee under. They've just been better. In that game earlier, that was the difference. Vandy, shot the ball well on their home floor. Tennessee, the defense really wasn't there. And Tennessee shot the ball great. They should be shot 48%, 24-50, 10 for 21 for 3. 48%, 17 for 21, 81%. So, and they lost the game. It was tight, but Vandy was able to get it done there at home. I think this will be difficult for them on the road in this spot, especially with Tennessee off the loss. So look for the defense to be up. But let's get into the point here, Van. Into February, hit March, where I'm looking to fade Tennessee, our good old buddy Barnes.
Yeah, stay away from him in the NCAA tournament, for the love of God. Every year I have to hear some people say, this is the year. He's got more talent than ever before, and he never does enough with it. I mean, there's only so many more times you can believe in it. There's so many better futures options out there. You're lighting your money on fire and putting it in the incinerator, taking Tennessee to win the national championship. That's what I'm saying. That's it. I mean, how many times, like, you either got to be, burying your head in the sand or living in a dungeon somewhere. How many times do you have to be hit upside the head with this team getting bounced early in the NCAA tournament under this coach before you finally stop fucking believing in them? Like, come on now.
Yeah.
All right, Houston and Arizona. That's enough of my rant. Houston 1.5-point road favorites, 137.5 the total here in this game. What a matchup this is. This should be one of the better games on Saturday. I mean, I actually lean to the Wildcats here. McHale Center, the place will be buzzing. It'll be jumping with Houston coming in. Arizona's off the road loss at Kansas State earlier this week. We like Kansas State. I like Kansas State in that spot. They got it done for me, and I know Arizona was equally red hot like K-State going into that game, but I said I think this could be the spot where Arizona trips up, and now they look to bounce back here at home against Houston. I don't mind the idea of maybe taking Arizona here plus 1.5 in this game, and I like Calvin Sampson, and I like, obviously, this Houston Cougars team. But, they've had their own little chinks in the armor, I think, of late as well, if you look at Houston, because, they had the loss, obviously, to Texas Tech, and that came at home at the Fertitta Center. They've only covered 1 point spread in the last 4 games. If you look at the Oklahoma State home game, they only won that by single digits. They really didn't get a big margin there. Kind of coasted against a really bad Colorado team. They did have a nice win against Baylor at home, 76-65. But again, not a perfect performance by any stretch. And it was a late surge by Houston to pull away there in that game. You look at Arizona, the last time they lost a game at Texas Tech, came back home, or went on the road and beat Oklahoma State, I should say. This should be a great basketball game. Really, really fun to watch. These two teams also have some past history. They played in the tournament. They played in the Final Four, or the Elite Eight, if I'm not mistaken, a couple of years ago. It was when we were in San Antonio. It was the original Pub-A-Palooza, I believe, for Pub Sports Radio. And Houston and Arizona were in the tournament. That's the last time they played each other. It was in the tournament, and Houston won 72-60. Against Arizona. AT&T Center, I remember. Yeah, I remember us being in San Antonio right at that time when that was going on for the first Pub-A-Palooza. So that's the last time they met. Now they're conference foes. I'm leaning a little bit to Arizona here, though, as a home on. You don't get Arizona on this home floor, a home dog, very often. And I think they're capable the way they've been playing. You throw out the K-State loss, no shame in that, because Kansas State's just on an absolute heater. It's not a bad loss at all for Arizona. It just wouldn't surprise me to see Arizona bounce back and win here at home, with all due respect to Houston. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of think Arizona here at home. Place will be going nuts at the McHale Center. I mean, earlier in the year, they were playing their best basketball. They did get their ass kicked against Duke. So, and this is a Houston team that we see can go on the road and win. So this one should be good. And I lean under. Yeah, we talked about K-State. I had that and the under. I thought that total was a little bit too high. I need to look at this one a little bit more, just because I think Arizona's playing a little bit better defense. Something I can't believe I was going to say early on in the year, but that's why they've gone on this run where they played better. So yeah, should be good.
Yeah, and by the way, this is probably deciding for the regular season Big 12 title, because Houston's 12-1 in the Big 12, Arizona's 11-2. But if Arizona wins and they're both 12-2 after this game, Arizona gets it because of the head-to-head tiebreaker. So this is an enormous game. This is going to go a long way. I mean, whoever wins this is going to have the inside track to win the Big 12 regular season title, which means, of course, you'll get the number 1 seed in the Big 12 tournament coming up, of course, in March as well. And probably it'll enhance both of these teams' chances to get, I don't know if either of these teams are really truly alive for the 1 seed, but certainly to be moved up the 2 line at the very least, for as far as seeding is concerned. for the NCAA tournament. So great game that should be. Missouri, Georgia. We've got Missouri 1.5-point road favorites, 144.5 the total in this game. Missouri on the road, not always quite as trustworthy, but Missouri certainly bounced back strong against Oklahoma with a 82-58 win at home after 2 losses to A&M at home and Tennessee on the road. Let's try to keep that rolling here against Georgia. Georgia did sweep the season series last year, won both meetings against Missouri, but this is a totally different Missouri team. It's a Missouri team that, believe it or not, I know the road record is not overall great. They had the loss at Texas, the loss at Tennessee, but they also beat Mississippi State and beat Florida on the road. Let's not forget Missouri was able to do that. This just, to me, is Missouri's the better team. There's no doubt about that in my mind, and I don't have enough confidence what I'm seeing out of the Georgia Bulldogs right now. And I'm not Mr. Mike White fan club. You know that. Don't think this guy's particularly great from a coaching standpoint. They've been playing awful basketball. They're 2-7 straight up the last 9 games. That's why I think, believe it or not, Missouri in just a pick 'em price range. I definitely lean that way, taking Mizzou. Don't have much confidence right now in this Georgia Bulldogs team. And the thing that's really hurt Georgia significantly is their offense is just stagnant. They don't have a lot of great ball movement. They don't have a really strong, consistent, perimeter guy. There's just some issues big time with this offense right now, Georgia, that continues to really, really hurt them. And then they've had the games where both of them, the offense and the defense, basically abandoned them at the same time, like what happened at Florida when they lost by 30. Just not a very good basketball team right now, and I'm not taking them. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a game I really bet. I think this is a game Missouri can go on the road and win. Georgia is better here at home. They got to slow the game way down. I just think in the end, Missouri, has the better scorers kind of in this game. With Mitchell, Bates, Perkins, all those guys
behind gates, heaven or hell, mansion or jail. Better coach,
yeah. yeah. Mike White ripping, today. So yeah, I don't know if I bet it. It seems it could be tough. It won't be easy though for Missouri, and off a huge win. Oklahoma, all of a sudden, the team that was playing great basketball has hit the shits.
Yeah, the SEC conference schedule will chew up and spit out anybody. And I think you put Oklahoma in the Big 10 or the Big 12 or the Big East, and they actually could be an upper half of the conference finisher. I think that's a solid team, but there's just too many good teams, and there's too many.
Well, and they were beating good teams in to start the year, but that's not now. Now they need to win games.
Yep, they definitely do. Here's a team that doesn't need to win games, but they do keep on winning games, and that's for the most part, other than the Clemson game last Saturday, and that's Duke. Duke 21.5-point home favorites against Stanford, 141.5 the total in this game. I'm going to do it. Duke is not in the business right now of, we need to win by 23, 25 points. They aren't right now.
Yeah.
There's going to be some serious money to be made going against Duke laying 20 points or more. If you did that in their last game and you took Cal, I know it was an ugly position to take the Golden Bears. They were getting 23.5, but they covered. Barely, but they covered. They only lost by 21. As 23.5-point road underdogs in that game. This kind of feels similar to me in this game. Now, I guess the concern would be if you're bad enough to go on the road and lose by 13 to Wake, and you're bad enough to go on the road and lose at Georgia Tech by 8, and you're bad enough to lose by 24 on the road at SMU, maybe Duke can cover this number and beat the hell out of Stanford. But to me, there's a little bit of this, I don't want to say nonchalantness coming into the play, because let's not forget about that Cal game. As soon as that game came out at halftime, Duke had the 15-point lead. Cal cut it to like 9 or 10. You could tell Duke was kind of sleepwalking early in the second half. If that happens for an extended amount of time in this game against Stanford, it's not easy for Duke to cover a number like this if that's going to happen. I know Stanford's been a mess. They've 0-5 ATS their last 5 games. The only game they've won was a 1-point non-cover at home against NC State. So it's not a great team in great form right now. But this is more so that dare Duke to win by a margin when they may not be, putting that pedal to the metal to the extent that they need to cover this kind of point spread. So I'm going to take a shot again. I cashed with Cal. I'm going to come back and take a small shot here again, fading Duke, and take Stanford plus 21.5. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, Stanford, just the offense is sputter. That's one game, obviously they were missing McCollum. It didn't matter. I wish I was on Georgia Tech a lot bigger than the other night. They kicked Stanford's ass. Stanford couldn't hit a shot too early. I think, you lean to take the points to them, and I go right back under Duke or Stanford's team total under. These teams continue to go in there and don't seem like they get more than, to get to 60 at least. Their defense has been that, smothered. Syracuse, that was at 54, but NC State 64, 57, 56, Miami at 54, Pitt had 47. I just think you look at the under or their team total under here.
All right, Auburn, Alabama, basketball version of the Iron Bowl. We got Alabama 1.5 point home favorites. 1.7. Look at that total, man. 172.5 here for the total here. Auburn and Alabama. But this is definitely one of the games of the day. Houston and Arizona's in the conversation to be game of the day, but so is this one, obviously. Auburn. This is number 1 versus number 2, believe it or not, in the AP poll right now. So doesn't get much better than that. Auburn with an 80-68 win against Vanderbilt in their last game. Alabama just dismantles Texas 103-80 on the road in their last game. We'll see how this one plays out. If you look at Auburn, 6-1 on the road. Alabama 10-1 at home. This is a tough game to have a pregame position on, quite honestly, because you look at SEC conference play, and Auburn's passed every test on the road. The only loss they suffered, believe it or not, was at home when they lost to Florida. But talk about how Alabama's been awesome on the road. How about how awesome Auburn has been on the road? Look at Auburn. At Vandy, they win by 12. At Ole Miss, a really good team, they win by 10 on the road. They beat LSU by double digits on the road. They beat Georgia only by 2, but that was the game right after Johni Broome got injured. Remember, he got injured the game before that. And then Georgia, they were kind of, seeing how the pieces fit that first game without him. And I think that's probably why that game was close and they kind of struggled a bit. And then, of course, they won the other SEC road games too with Texas and South. So they've been a road warrior. So I'm at the point here where I know Alabama's at home. It's in Tuscaloosa. And obviously they're very capable. And if the threes are hitting, look out. But I can't. Auburn is a rare underdog. And with how good they've been on the road, I probably have to lean Auburn at the plus 1.5, because these two teams to me have shown throughout the season they can go on the road in tough environments and get the job done. They have shown it consistently. It wouldn't shock me if Auburn wins here, but I'm probably going to look more toward a live type of situation. This is going to be one of those games of runs where if Alabama starts the game hot, goes up 9-2, 11-2 early, first time out, you can take Auburn at a really good number. And similarly, if Auburn gets off to a good start, 11-2 or something, you can take Alabama live. I mean, this is going to be a game of runs. This is going to be a game of momentum swings. So from that standpoint, whenever the team goes up, one of the teams goes on a swing, you bet the other team. And I think you're going to be able to do that in a game like this and have some success. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, in a game like this, you think it's kind of the flip. I agree with you. Shit ton of games. Ones like this, I don't know. Really too much I want to bet if there's an advantage. I think in the end, Auburn's the better team. So, I would take them.
And they've shown their ability to win on the road. That's where I'm at. Yep.
Yeah, Alabama keeps surprising me. They've gone on the road, and I'm just, we'll see if they keep proving it. Because I think one thing, Auburn is a little bit better all around, better defense than Alabama.
Yep. And
we'll see if they can keep hitting shots. I mean, this total's high, but this game is going to be up and down. There will be points in this game. I mean, they both should be in the 80s, I think. So, wow. But the atmosphere should be wild here. How can you not want to watch this one? Yeah, this is a great one. Like you were talking about, the bet live, a game like this with these two teams. Iron Bowl, baby.
I'm sure this is definitely going to be the Dan Shulman, Jay Billis game for ESPN. I'm sure.
Well, it's got to be.
That's probably the game they'll be doing. No doubt for ESPN tomorrow, no question. I do not handicap college baseball, Daryl. Sorry to disappoint you. I handicap a lot of stuff, but that is not one of them. But I am aware it's season opening day for college baseball. Major League Baseball, I will be there. to handicap that, as I always am. So, and that's coming up too pretty soon. Pitchers and catchers are reporting already. So, like I said, that's going to be here before you know it as well. All right, we got Villanova and Providence next up here. Big East action taking place on Saturday. We've got Villanova 2.5-point road favorites, 140.5 being the total in this game. This one to me, Connor Mack, right now it's a pass. I put it on the card because it's a significant game, but I will say this: credit to Nova. You know, they cooled off what was a red hot St. John's team the other night. Great win for Cal Neptune and the Wildcats. But now they're off that kind of a win and going on the road. Tough spot, without a doubt. And I don't want to lay points on the road with Villanova, but I keep saying this about Providence. This is not that same team that you can just line up and take them at the Dunkin' Donuts Center there, or whatever they call it now, their home court, and expect them to win. They have not been that team this year that has been dominant on their home court. So I think it's a really tough game. I think if you forced me to, I would take Providence, but I ain't rushing to take either side in this game. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't want this game flat out. Providence just keeps not getting it done. Getting it done. Lately, it's been the defense, and they don't have enough scoring and offense too. So Xavier went in there, took care of business, and that's back-to-back games where they kind of folded late, and that was just a huge win, for Nova. Maybe they're a little bit out of it in this one. Maybe early, maybe Providence. That's been the best spot, I think, is at least they've been playing better first half, Havana, and kind of in these home games, and they've lost it in the second half. So maybe look at them first half. But Poplar playing good basketball all of a sudden. Not that he wasn't, but he was more of his role. I'm just saying, I know in the last, 3 or 4, I think he's had 20 plus in a lot of those games. He had 22 again.
No doubt.
That helps out for Dixon.
It does. All right, so we have the Iron Bowl in basketball tomorrow. We have the Egg Bowl in basketball tomorrow, too. Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, 4.5-point home favorites, 146.5 the total in this game. These teams already met back in January in Starkville, and Mississippi State pulled out a 3-point overtime win against Ole Miss in that game. But you look at the old Mississippi State team since that win, and their only wins were at Georgia by 1 point. Georgia's not very good. And South Carolina by 5. South Carolina's not very good, and they didn't cover in that game. So Mississippi State, in every big game they've played since beating Ole Miss, and remember, Ole Miss was coming off, I think, that monster win at Alabama, if I'm not mistaken. And then they went on the road to play Mississippi State. Very tough spot for Ole Miss, and yet they still almost won that game. So Mississippi State really took advantage of the situation there. But since then, they lose by double digits at Tennessee. They lose at Alabama at home. They get blown out at home by Missouri. And they get absolutely steamrolled by Florida in their last game as well. So Mississippi State has really not been able to step up here and beat good teams. You got Ole Miss at home. Ole Miss is starting to turn it around again after the little bit of a swoon. They've now won 3 in a row. Kentucky by blowout fashion. The last 2 opponents weren't great, LSU, South Carolina, but they got the job done. Revenge spot, too, for Chris Beard's team. It's Ole Miss or pass for me. Lay it or don't play it. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I can't lay it here with Ole Miss. I think they're the better team. I just think Mississippi State could be in this game. Just a good rivalry. And, one thing with Ole Miss, they have covered some games here at home. Like they beat up Kentucky, I remember 98-84, but they've been favored. Texas, they didn't cover. In that game, Texas A&M, they lost. There's been a couple others. So, yeah, I think this game's a close one. I kind of lean, what's the total? I leaned over in this game.
146.5, yep.
Yeah, I kind of lean over. Mississippi State,
their
the defense at times
is at times. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ole Miss should be able, to score here. So I kind of lean over. I'm going to look at it a little bit more.
Well, let me strengthen your cause with that. 6-1 to the over in the last 7 head-to-head meetings as well in the Egg Bowl.
Yeah.
With, Mississippi State and Ole Miss. And, of course, it flew over in the first meeting. I think even if it didn't go to overtime, it would have gone over the posted total prior to overtime.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it went over. Yeah.
No doubt.
We're right there.
Yeah. So there you go. So
74,
it probably is over or pass. You're right. That's some strong series history to high-scoring games with those two teams. All right, Wake Forest and SMU. SMU 5.5-point home favorites. 144.5 being the total here in this game. SMU, man, they just laid a number on Pitt, 83-63 in their last game. They've covered 3 in a row. The offense is starting to heat up, 80 points or more in 3 straight games. Wake Forest, this is why I didn't want to lay it with Wake Forest against Florida State. I'm like, I don't fully trust them, and they lose outright against Florida State. A 6-point home favorite, 72-70 in that game. And it just barely, and I mean just barely, stays under the total in that game as well. We'll see how this one plays out, but, SMU's playing some really good basketball. You look at Wake away from home. They had the wins against Cal and Stanford, but those aren't great teams. They lose by 13 at Louisville. They did beat Virginia Tech, and they did beat Miami, wins and covers, but a lot of mediocre to bad, below average ACC teams. The one really good ACC team they played on the road, they lost by doubles. So it's probably the Pony Express or nothing for me in this game, and maybe I lean over a little bit one more time. SMU at home, seems to get their pace, get their points. So I lean over, and it's probably SMU or pass. Don't know if I'm going to bet it, but if I were, it would be SMU or over. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I get involved with this game. We'll see if SMU, has that pace and it kind of dictates it. It will go over, but if not, this will stay under because Wake Forest just doesn't have the shooters at all, and they play decent defense, and they're not playing fast. I'm so glad I stayed off Pitt in that game. I were looking at them all day, and no bet for me, and they got killed. I still don't think SMU is that great. They kind of beat up on all these, I don't know what to make of them. The wins are all right. Pitt, Stanford, Cal, they play a good team. So hey, I got to give hats off to them. I probably won't be involved here.
All right, next up as we continue along here, we go back to the Big Ten, and it is Michigan State, Illinois. We've got Illinois 5.5-point home favorites, 154.5 the total in this game. Sparty, upset loss at home to Indiana as Mike Woodson and the Hoosiers roll in there and beat them as a sizable underdog. So you got Michigan State in bounce-back mode here on the road at Illinois, but this is not going to be easy for Tom Izzo and company because Illinois is playing pretty solid. It's a revenge spot for Illinois. They lost a tough one at Michigan State, 80-78 earlier this season. Very close game. It is bounce back time for Michigan, but Illinois, like I said, they've won 3 of their last 4. It's been pretty good to see. And when you start to look at Michigan State lately, losing to Indiana, beating Oregon, okay, losing to UCLA, losing to USC, and you start to look at before that, other than the Illinois win, which was a good win, Washington, Northwestern, Penn State, Minnesota, none of the wins are any good. These aren't the teams they've beaten other than that 2-point win at home against Illinois, not great teams. So I start to worry that has Michigan State gotten this, 19-5 overall record because they're legitimately a really good team? Or have they just feasted on the weak, in the majority of their conference schedule? I think Illinois is flat out better. Redemption for losing earlier at East Lansing. It's probably I lay it with Illinois or I pass. Even with Michigan State off the loss to Indiana at home, I think Illinois is better and certainly will play with purpose after losing to Sparty earlier this year. So, again, not sure I'll bet it, but it's Illinois for me if I do. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, what do you make from – are they going to play better? But they've lost – 2 out of the 3 were on the road, but, they've lost 3 of 4. And Illinois, they're not consistent. If I had a little bit more trust, I think laying it here kind of is the spot because Michigan State kind of took it to them in that game. So I lean that way. But for some reason, I think this game could be tight just because Illinois kind of lax every once in a while. They have it seems like 5 or 10 minutes turnovers and they let a team back in. So, we saw it with UCLA, right?
We did. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Shit. So that's always kind of been my issue with them the last year or two, especially laying points with them.
Yeah, and that certainly was an issue if you laid it with Illinois the other night. No question.
Yeah.
All right, Kentucky and Texas. Texas, 1.5-point home favorites, 160.5 the total in this game. I still don't trust Texas, man. Now Kentucky's off, another win against Tennessee, 2-0 this year for Kentucky against Tennessee, and a nice bounce back from them because they've kind of been scuffling of late, but now they've won 2 in a row against South Carolina and Tennessee. Now they'll look to go on the road and duplicate that feat, but going on the road's been tough on them. But Vandy, Ole Miss, the last 2 road losses. They did beat Mississippi State on the road. They did lose to Georgia. That's a bad road loss now looking back on it for Kentucky because Georgia really hasn't played that well. But I don't know. I still think Kentucky's a better team. And I know they've had their issues. I would still lean Wildcats here. Kentucky plus 1.5. I ain't laying points with Texas. That much I know. I don't love the spot for Kentucky, but I would take Kentucky before Texas. C-Mac, what do you think?
I kind of think so too. It's just short, but even the 1.5. I think they're just the more. It's just what do we get from them? Like if they're on their A game or just like B plus, they're better than Texas flat out. I thought Texas played a little bit better, as the year's gone on. But yeah, I kind of like Kentucky here. I wonder if this total's a little high, but I think there should be points. We touched on that game. Jerry Davis, I just get to roll with the under. I needed to look at it a little bit more, just because A&M at home. I think their defense kind of takes it to Arkansas.
No doubt, definitely something to point out there with that. All right, next up as we continue along here, we've got Kansas State and BYU. BYU 5.5-point home favorites. I only say that with some surprise because of just how red hot Kansas State has been. But here's BYU laying 5.5 in this game, and the total sitting at 146.5, pretty much across the board here in this one. This is now, I've been riding Kansas State for 5, maybe 6 straight games now, and I've covered every single time. This is the one that does concern me. They're off that huge win against Arizona at home in the Little Apple. It has a flat spot and a letdown written all over it. But Kansas State can't assume anything. They are right there with a chance to be in the NCAA tournament with this brilliant run they've put together, beating Kansas at home, beating Arizona at home, walloping Iowa State at Hilton Coliseum, a place where nobody beats the Cyclones until Kansas State went in there just recently and beat them. So all of this work, this Tang Gang, Jerome Tang-led team has put together to get themselves back into position to make the NCAA tournament. You don't want to give it back by laying an egg here in Provo against BYU. And as long as they don't have that emotional, hangover, if you will, from the Arizona win, then this is a steal of a number, in my opinion, to get this with Kansas State plus 5.5. So I am concerned about the spot, but I'm still going ahead, C-Mac, and I'm still taking them one more time. K-State plus 5.5 here at the Marriott Center Saturday night. What do you think here?
I think so too. I don't trust BYU as much this year. I just don't think they're very good. But at home, they've been better. This number they get a cover reminds me they beat Baylor. That game was about 4 pushes. And it seems like they win this game. But K-State keeps doing the things that they weren't doing. If they shoot it better from the free throw line, that'd be excellent for them. But take care of the ball. The defense has switched. Can they do it here in Provo? I think so. I think they can hang around. Now, BYU just comes out at home and is just red hot from 3. Maybe they could run away with it. But how do you go against this team?
9
straight? Come on.
Yeah, got it.
It's them or nothing, or stay off the fucking game.
Yeah, it is. I'm back on them. Like I said, I am concerned now after, but again, you can't screw around here for Kansas State. You don't want to put this great run together, be right there on the fringe of being in the tournament field again, and lose by 30 here against BYU. You don't want to do that. That would be bad. And it's those blowout losses that are.
And they've been beating better teams.
Yeah.
Than this BYU, even though it's BYU at home.
Yeah.
But Arizona, Iowa State, Kansas, come on.
Yeah, I'm taking them. I'm taking them still. K-State. One more time.
I'll be right back.
All right, no problem. C-Mac will be back in a moment. We got 2 games left, and then we'll wrap it up with best bets. Washington State and St. Mary's. We've got St. Mary's 14.5-point home favorites, 139.5 the total in this one. I think I have to take the Cougars here. I do. I mean, St. Mary's is starting to become a little bit, and I say this because they haven't been nearly as bad ATS lately as Gonzaga, and Gonzaga again is a big favorite. Failed to cover last night against San Francisco. They haven't been as bad as Gonzaga in that regard, but St. Mary's still has not been as trustworthy laying these points lately. You know, it's kind of been hit or miss. Let's not forget at Washington State, these teams played earlier this year in Pullman. St. Mary's was a 6-point road favorite. They only won by 5. Now, I know this Washington State team, and man, they've been disappointing. There's no question. We were expecting more from this team, and I get it. They've had some injuries to deal with. Cedric Coward, Marcus Wilson, both of these guys that got season-ending injuries for this group. I get it. They've had some unfortunate setbacks there, but you know, I think we still expected better than what we've seen from them. They've struggled, and they've lost to Santa Clara by blowout fashion. St. Mary's, but they were 11-point road favorites at Pacific, and they lost outright. They got blown out at San Francisco. They failed to cover, lost by 8 at Oregon State. Even their last game against Pepperdine, the Waves, they were 10.5-point home favorites. They won by 1. So it's not been a good run here for Washington State. But if you look at this St. Mary's team, you know, they failed to cover against Santa Clara the last game. You know, they're going to play Gonzaga again in another week in a rematch at the Kennel. You know, for me, for St. Mary's, it's more about let's win the game, winning by margin. It's starting to look like, it's not the biggest concern. And like I said, it was a 6-point game when they met earlier this year between these two teams. So I would probably lean to taking the big number here with Washington State. Kind of a hold your nose special because they're not playing great, but still lean in their direction. C-Mac, what do you think here? I made the case to take the ugly dog, Washington State against St. Mary's. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to have to look at this one a little bit more. You know, I kind of leaned under when I look at this game just because St. Mary's, we know how they play defensively, and they can just shut down a team. What was it, Oregon State? They only scored 49 the other day?
Yep.
This last week. Like, I think that could happen you know, with this one with Washington State. And I wanted to look up. Yeah, that game was 5 earlier because they covered that game, right? Yeah, Washington State at home.
They covered.
Just covered. Yes, they did. So, you know, can they have some success? Like the losses lately, though, on the road have been pretty rough. You know, the Pacific, he's talking about
losses.
But
as a dog against St. Mary's, they covered. As a dog at Gonzaga, believe it or not, earlier in the season, they covered. So it seems like the better teams, they actually get a little something better out of the Cougars. Yeah.
It's they've just had. What do you get? It seems like they cover this, and it's probably a 7-point game or less, or they lose by 30. Because I remember, you know, a game I remember, and is at Santa Clara. Like 93-65. Yep. Like, holy shit. I mean, just got doors blown off in that game. So, but yeah, I think, you know, they could hang around here. But I think the under might just be the better play, the way St. Mary's at home is playing.
All right, last game on our game-by-game previews for Saturday, Kansas and Utah. Jayhawks, 8.5-point road favorites, 145.5 the total. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I'm going to be on Utah here. You know, believe it or not, here, plus 8.5. I've almost lost confidence in Kansas being able to cover any sort of number lately because that was a horrific Colorado Buffaloes team that you played at home at the Fog, coming off that loss to Kansas State where you were trailing wire to wire, and you didn't even sniff a cover and point spread cover in that game. You actually needed to extend the margin late just to get it to double digits. And Colorado, make no mistake about it, they're bad. They're fucking horrible. Okay? And here's Kansas. It's almost like they were, again, playing with their food, just did what they had to get by. And that's exactly what happened in that game at home against against Colorado. They are now just 2-7 against the spread in their last 9 games. On the road, they've been at their worst. Now, this is a pretty bad Utah team, but it was a pretty bad Colorado team the other night at home, and they still didn't get the money, did Kansas. So it's almost at the point now where on the road, how do you trust them? They blown out by Iowa State, blown out by Baylor, lose to Kansas State. Their one good road win by margin was at TCU. So I guess it's possible if you look at that win at TCU that Kansas by 13, like maybe Kansas can cover this number. Talent-wise, they're good enough to still win this game by double digits, but I don't love their form. And the one thing I will say about the Utes is if you look at them on the home floor here, they beat BYU, beat Oklahoma State, they beat Cincinnati. They covered against Colorado, won by 13. They had the bad home game against Baylor, 76-61. But other than that, they've actually been pretty solid the last few times they've been at home in Big 12 play. So, yeah, it's probably I got to lean, at the very least, lean Utah. I don't know if I'll bet it, but I have to lean Utah. You're plus 8.5. I do not, at the moment, trust Kansas laying a number like this on the road. C-Mac, what do you think?
No. I mean, I have not really been impressed with this Utah team, even at home. You know what I mean? They have 3 losses where at least they would play better. I mean, it shows they're 13-11. I think the points are the way to go too. Like, I think Kansas wins this game, but I don't know if it's by 12 here. So I like Utah as well. Lean under a little bit. Utah, not a crazy over team.
Nope.
They just don't have the scores. I know they're not great defensively, but 10-14 to the under, and this total seems a little bit high.
And Kansas games trended under on the road. Look at these Kansas games.
Yeah.
Most of them have gone under throughout the course of the season. So, the total might be just a little bit.
I like it. I like them both.
Yeah, might be a little bit high in that one. There you have it. That's the Saturday college basketball preview. Best bets coming up. We talked already about UCLA, Indiana, but we do have a lot of mid-major college basketball taking place here on this Friday night. C-Mac, anything in the mid-major ranks for this Friday that you like before we wrap up the show with best bets?
Yeah, let's hit on it. Fairfield. I'm on Fairfield. I do not trust St. Peter's
Yeah.
at all. I don't think this team should be favored by anything. If they pick them, should they in this game? Fairfield's not very good. 2, I get some people think St. Peter's is maybe due for a win. I mean, they haven't won in a long time, even at home. So +4, is what I got. I think 3.5 is fine. That game's close. Let's keep going here. Sacred Heart, I'm taking them. They're just run 6 straight.
They're caught fire all of a sudden after a terrible start in Metro Atlantic play. Yeah.
Yeah, their first year, just a bad start. Quinnipiac, too, just a little bit not as good as maybe the record. Like, they're solid, but in this conference, they all beat up on each other, and they're coming a little bit back down to earth in this one. So, Sacred Heart, and they have the shooters. Like, if they go cold, they could lose, but I think they're in this. Decent team from the free throw line, so Sacred Heart. Yeah, I took the 4, but I think they could win.
That's a outright game too, in my opinion.
In that game,
yep.
Probably, yeah. Yep. But I think Sacred Heart here, red hot team, is the way to go. That's it. I like Ryder a little bit. It's gone down to 5.5. I think they can keep that game close. Iona playing better, but should they be laying 6.5? I don't think so. There. That is it. Merrimack, Manhattan under. Oh, I'm dying. I gotta plug this in.
Bet. Well, we'll get you out of here quickly. Best bet.
Fairfield.
Fairfield?
Fairfield.
The Stags. There we go. Apparently his battery's dying. C-Mac, I'll wrap it up. Take care, my friend. I think he's gone. Whew, just got that in. Fairfield plus, I believe, 3.5 against St. Peter's for best bet here for Connor Mack. Yeah, I'll run through quickly. I'll run through quickly what I've got here as far as this card and plus best bet as well. I'm on Mount St. Mary's +2 against Niagara. I actually don't trust Niagara laying points. I don't. I know they covered against Canisius. Very fortunate they covered at the end, but I like and I agree with Connor Mack with Fairfield. I like the over more with Quinnipiac St. Peter's or Quinnipiac Sacred Heart, I should say, than I do Sacred Heart, but I do lean Sacred Heart for sure. I don't know if I can trust St. Louis on the road. They burned me so many times. I still think they might be better talent-wise, but Loyola Chicago's good at home. I didn't bet that game, but I do lean to Loyola Chicago. I like Siena at home against Marist. I like Ohio Kent State over the total. That total's taken a big rise, 144.5 to 147.5. I agree. I think there's points in that game. I'm a total agreement with Ryder. Ryder has dominated Iona ATS historically. And now they're in revenge mode because I think Iona won a close game at Ryder earlier this season. So it's that angle. I've talked about it. If you watch me with Jimmy the Bag on the Thursday show, the losing the home game and then you're a dog in the revenge game on the road against that team, it's been a good angle. And that says bet Ryder tonight against Iona. So I agree with that. I like Ryder +6 against Iona. I laid Northern Kentucky. I mean, Green Bay is a disgrace. Doug Gottlieb's an even bigger disgrace, an absolute clown of a coach. What a fucking moron to actually think he can operate and host a podcast every day and think he can devote the time and the attention he needs to coach a college basketball team. It was a friggin' disaster of a hire, and I fade them at every reasonable opportunity. And I actually think in this spot with Northern Kentucky showing a little life the last couple games, that laying 6.5 against Green Bay is not too bad. Maybe a flat spot for Yale. I do kind of agree with the move toward Penn there, getting a big number as double digits dogs against Yale. A lot of people like Brown. I think it's worth a look too. Small bet because I do think Princeton is a team they've struggled with in the past, but certainly don't mind it. Manhattan plus the points. I know Connor likes the under. I like Manhattan there. And Merrimack is still not the offense I'm trusting as road favorites. We talked about UCLA. I like the Bruins there. I like Wright State Milwaukee over the total. 150. Look at every recent Wright State Milwaukee game. It's been an over palooza with those teams. One over after another. Games are getting into the 160s and 170s in the majority of the head-to-head games with the Wright State Raiders and the Milwaukee Panthers. So I like over in that game. It's a high total 155, but I do think it goes over that number. Nothing but overs recently head-to-head with those two. I'm actually getting more interested in San Jose State. I know they lost a tough one against San Diego State the other night, and maybe they fall flat tonight, but who the hell is trusting Nevada to lay 8.5 points on the road? I'm not. And San Jose State's been very good ATS at home, and I don't trust Nevada either on the road. So I'm going to take a shot. That number keeps on creeping up. I'm going to take a shot with San Jose State plus 8.5 against Nevada, just because I know they're coming off that tough loss to the Aztecs, but they've been good ATS at home, and I have zero confidence in Nevada laying points.
Yeah. Is there word, though, with McClendon?
That's even if he doesn't play, I'm hoping that that's the usual shit that we talk about with Will McClendon is his name for San Jose State, knee injury, questionable. They haven't heard a definitive answer on that yet. But hopefully it's a step-up game for everyone else, which sometimes you see.
Well, they did last game. They were both out. Yeah. And they did step up that first half, and they got drilled. Of course, they covered.
Yeah.
I think it's San Jose State. Yeah, I mean.
I'm not Nevada in this price range.
Not Nevada. They've won 3 straight, but they beat up on nobody. I mean, it's Fresno, Air Force, UNLV. I know they've kind of owned San Jose State, but I just don't think, at 8, you want to lay points with it. They've only had one shit game at home all year, Nevada, where they lost 22 to Colorado State.
Yeah.
That's it. Other than that, they've kind of just been within 10 every game. So that was a wait for me if I was going to play on it there. But I told you Fairfield, I'll do it because I don't even know. I barely juiced here to get this. My Saturday, Tennessee under, best bet. Vandy, Tennessee under 139. They're going to stymie them. I think you even look at Vandy's team total under in that game.
All right, good stuff indeed. I'll give you 2 best bets. They're Big Ten best bets, both of them. My best bet for Friday is going to be UCLA. I think they win on the road. UCLA. I think they go on the road. They beat Indiana. I don't trust Indiana to follow up finally a good game. They haven't done it all year. UCLA off a loss to Illinois. I don't think they get swept on this 2-game road trip. I think they're bounced back. They gave Illinois a tough game. I like UCLA money line tonight against Indiana. That'll be my Friday best bet. My Saturday best bet is also going to be from the Big Ten. Give me that over with Wisconsin and Purdue. I like that game over the total, 147.5. Purdue's been an over machine at home. I've used Purdue a bunch of times as an over on this show as best bet. Let's take them one more time over the total. Purdue hosting Wisconsin over 147.5. That'll be my Saturday best bet here for this edition of the Hitting the Books show. C-Mac, anything you want to add, and then we'll wrap it up.
Shout out to everyone out here. Hit the like button. That's all we ask. Rivas, my man, what's going on? Oldie, Mr. D, Rick, Jay. Shout out to all you guys. Jerry Davis. Let's have a great Friday and then Saturday. Shout out to everyone, too, on Twitter /X. Like our stuff, like videos. We really appreciate it when you guys do that. It means a lot. We're trying to get this channel rolling again. Now it's college basketball in the next few months. So give us a like and a retweet on our shit. We appreciate it.
No doubt. We do appreciate it. Shout out to everyone in the chat. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Friday night and a great weekend. Cash some tickets. Enjoy the games and good luck. We'll see you Tuesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific for our next edition of the College Basketball Hitting the Books show. Until then, class dismissed.